Coding is everywhere. It's used in electronic devices such as computers, smartphones, and tablets. It's been used in the creation of millions of programs, from applications to games to social media platforms. There are hundreds of different languages available, and each has its own rules, features, and formatting. With so many different features and languages, it can be difficult for someone who's new to coding to figure out exactly where to start. While you can start by jumping into a programming language, it's better to start by understanding the underlying concepts and principles that apply to almost any computing language. Here are some of the most important concepts to know about coding. It's important to understand that not all languages are created equally. Each language is designed to perform certain functions, and some languages may be far more effective at performing a task than others. Depending on what platform you're using and what program you're creating, your selection of languages you can use will be different. Before going into the key distinctions between languages, it's important to understand how they function. All electronic devices operate using machine language, which consists of an extensive series of ones and zeros. However, programming in machine language is incredibly difficult and tedious, since it requires an incredibly long script, and it can't be understood by anyone else viewing your code. In order for a computer to recognize code in other languages, the code must first be converted into machine code. Two different methods of converting code are compilation and interpretation. Compiled languages need to run through a compiler, which converts the code into a machine code file that's specific for that device. Interpreted languages, on the other hand, are not device-specific and are converted as the program is running through an interpreter. This means that interpreted code can be used across different platforms, but is often slower than compiled code since it has to be processed as it runs. Another approach is to use an intermediate language, which sends a partially converted file to the device, which does the rest of the compiling using the device's specific details. Languages can also be classified based on how close to machine code they are. Low-level languages are closer to machine code, meaning that they're faster for the computer to run, are more dependent on device-specific features, and are usually harder to program. High-level languages are further from system code, so they're more versatile, and they're usually simpler to program for. The language I'll be focusing on for this video is JavaScript. JavaScript is a high-level interpreted language that is interpreted through an internet browser such as Chrome, Firefox, or Safari. While the code samples that I'll be showing in this video are specific to JavaScript, these concepts can also be applied to other computing languages. Just keep in mind that different languages may have certain restrictions or features that may not apply when coding with JavaScript. One of the most important components of a program is the variable. Variables are responsible for storing data that can be referenced and altered later in the code. Variables can come in a variety of different forms, including numbers, strings, which are segments of text, and booleans, which provide true or false values. Arrays allow you to store a large number of variables in one place and can be manipulated later in the program. Data, including variables, can be manipulated through the use of operators. For instance, arithmetic operators allow you to perform basic math functions using numbers or variables. They follow the same rules as regular math equations. Other types of operators include assignment operators, such as a single equal sign, and comparison operators, which are used when creating conditional code. Conditional code allows for an action to happen only if a certain condition is met. The most basic example of this is the if statement. When the condition is met, the action stated inside the braces will occur. Another useful condition statement is the switch statement, which allows for an easy way to combine multiple if statements involving the same variable. Loops, also known as iterations, are used to repeat an action for as long as a condition is met. The number of times an action is performed can be measured by setting up an index variable. Each time the loop is completed, the index should increase by 1. Once the loop no longer meets the condition stated, the loop will stop repeating. Functions are a tool that can be used to make your code more modular. Functions should be stated at the beginning of your code and can be referenced at any point throughout the code. allowing you to perform an action or a series of actions multiple times. You can also pass along information into the function by creating variables inside of the parentheses. When dealing with lower level languages such as C or C++, one important concept to understand is memory management, which involves the allocation of space in your computer's memory for various objects in your program. Another important concept to understand is debugging, which is the process of reviewing your code to check for errors with the syntax or logic in your program. Depending on the language and your familiarity with it, you may spend substantially more time debugging than actually coding. Once you understand all the concepts from this video, your next objective should be to get familiar with the coding language of your choice. The most effective way to learn is by coding with it yourself and taking advantage of the large number of resources available online, such as tutorials and object libraries. By applying the concepts from this video to different languages and programs, you are well on your way to mastering the extensive world of computer science.